Hey guys, MooJK here to talk about the upcoming event and banner. A lot of this stuff is going to be pretty self-explanatory, but I felt obligated to go through it and kind of give my thoughts, just for some people who might be interested. So, Trials of Love sounds like it's going to be very much like the Final Fantasy III Crystal Tower event that we had. Basically, it's like an exploration map that you go through. Once you clear it, you get a first-time clear reward. And probably when you re-enter the map, whether it's the same difficulty or the next difficulty up, there'll be a treasure chest room of some sort where you can open certain treasure chests depending on what you have cleared. And then that's what you're going to get, how you're going to get some of these treasures. So that's just my guess here. These are going to be the ones that you get in those treasure chests, again, after you clear a certain thing. Or maybe when you go through the first time, who knows. So Cupid Sandals seems like a pretty good accessory for your male characters. This is going to be a definite improvement over something like a Hyper Wrist, and in a lot of cases better than a Hero's Ring for people who don't need the extra magic. So, because the Spirit would give extra magic resistance. So this is a pretty nice accessory, and especially considering that it's obtained in the beginner treasure chest. Very easy to get, very generous here. The Cupid's robe is another decent robe to put on. The Magic 30 and Spirit 30 is pretty solid. Defense is nothing to write home about, but that's not really the point. And again, that's pretty easy to get. I think almost anybody can clear the intermediate stage. Lovely Rod is probably the third best rod that you can get for free in this game. And by free, I mean non-TMR. There's the Wizard Rod, which is 72 magic. There's the Lilith Rod from the Final Fantasy IV event. So that's pretty much past. If you've missed that, then you can't really get it again. But that one was 60 magic. And this one's going to be 55 magic. So just a step below that. But definitely a very solid rod and can work its way into a lot of different parties. Very good for a free rod here. And then Dungeon Clear Rewards. This is just your first time clear rewards, obviously. 100 Lapis, nothing special. Summon ticket, 100 Lapis again, and then a 5% Trust Mogul. So, you know, not super awesome here, but when you consider that you're getting all these combined, it's a lot of good loot that's coming in here. So it looks like we're going to have a lot of different bosses to fight, which is pretty cool. And, you know, this is a global exclusive, I believe. So it seems like a really fun event, and these kind of exclusive events tend to be a little bit more fun for me, so I'm looking forward to it. And you don't need to have these units for bonuses or things like that. It's not a farming event, so it's pretty cool because you don't have to pull if you don't want to. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure actually if it's a global exclusive event or if it's global exclusive rewards, so don't quote me on that. Anyway, let's get to the banner. So the upcoming banner has two global exclusive units, the Cupid Artemios and Luna. And Marie is actually an existing unit in Japan, so there's a lot that we know about her. But this banner is pretty interesting, again. Like all of these special event type of things, or a lot of them, none of these units are, in my opinion, must pull, but they're useful in their own way and could definitely help out some people. So Marie is a base 5-star, which is a bummer because that means that really pretty much nobody's going to get her unless they really pull hard for her. And she's not really a unit that a lot of people would pull hard for, so I'd be curious to see how many people go for her. I'm sure the whales will still do it, but so Marie is basically the Sirius on steroids. She's the ultimate green mage that we have in this game right now. She goes to 6 stars, of course. In Japan Ultima ratings, she has like a 94 out of 100, so you know that she's pretty future-proof. And I would say that she would be really useful to have in your stable of tricks, you know, kind of like situational in a way, but very solid unit for what she does. So I think for her, the most exciting thing from my perspective is her Trustmaster reward. The Rainbow Robe is by far the best robe that we have in the game now. Before, it was the Lordly Robe with the same amount of defense, but the Lordly Robe had 35 magic, 35 spirit. And this one also brings you all element resistance except for dark plus 30%. So that is huge. This is going to make your mages, whoever's wearing this, really, really durable. So whether or not you use Marie in your party, this robe is going to be an awesome TMR to have. And we'll get more into the details later. Base 4-star going to 6 stars is Cupid Artemios. So this is kind of like Artemios' second try at being a good unit. He is actually a pretty decent damage dealer. And again, we'll go into that more. His Trustmaster reward is actually really good for tanks. Defense plus 20%, HP plus 20%. So this is like a much better version of Muscle Belt. And then light and dark resist plus 25% is a very nice bonus. I would say this is even better than L's TMR, because L had 10% defense on that one. I think it also had some spirit too, but this one has 20% defense. So I guess it depends on what you need, but this is a very good accessory for your tanks. And then last but not least, actually she is the least, she's the booby prize of the banner, is Cupid Luna. Can't talk today. So this Trustmaster reward is decent for healers. It gives you MP, which is always good for healing. You don't want to run out of MP, obviously. Auto refresh gives you 5% MP per round. And from what I've read, this actually stacks. So if you want your healer to have kind of like infinite mana, and you can stack 2 of these, and you know, it's going to really have a good effect on your MP pool. Light and dark resist plus 15%, nice little bonus there. Pretty decent, but not a high priority Trustmaster reward. But if you happen to be going for any of these units and pulling hard for some reason, you'll end up with a couple of these probably. So not bad to have. Now let's get more into the details. Okay, so we'll start with Cupid Luna. I'm pretty much in the camp that if a unit doesn't go to 6 stars by now, they're not really usable for most people, but I'm going to go ahead and do an honest review anyway. So the stats are nothing special. 2500 is not too bad for this kind of unit. The attack is pretty mediocre slash average, I guess, but for this stage of the game, it's pretty low. The only weapons that she can use are bows and guns. And that's actually very useful to note here, and you'll see why in a little bit. These shooter skills are just usually pretty terrible. This one is terrible. But the Twilight Bolt is actually pretty decent. 2.5 is a good multiplier, and it decreases light resistance by 40%. So, again, I don't know why you would use this unit in your party, but let's say you had her and you had an Orlandeau or something like that, or even somebody who's just using Excalibur, then you know, you could do this kind of debuff, and the Excalibur user could follow up with a lot more damage. So that's one use for her. She's able to counter magical attacks with this dark hybrid damage, which is not going to amount to much because it's hybrid damage and she doesn't have great stats, but the confuse is kind of nice. She does extra damage to fairy monsters and humans. Spirit Slayer materia can actually be found in the story maps, but you know, it's kind of nice to have here as a passive. I know there's a fairy monster in the current Secret of Mana event, and there's probably going to be one for the Valentine's Day event as well, so maybe more of these are coming in our future. I'm not really sure. Now, when I first looked at her skills, I actually got excited for a second because I saw a chainsaw here, and as you know, this is Edgar's skill, Edgar the 4-star unit, and a lot of people use her to do really crazy chaining, because this does a lot of hits and it's really easy to chain. And you can really get the elemental chain really high and then have some finisher come in and do a ton of damage. Now, the problem with Cupid Luna having chainsaw is that her weapon selection doesn't really allow for elemental damage. What I mean by that is that she only uses bows and guns. For bows, the only elemental bow that we have right now is Killer Bow. So that means that you're not going to have 2 Cupid Lunas that can chain with each other because there are no 2 Killer Bows. Also, you can use guns, but the only elemental gun that we have right now is the Candy Gun from the winter event that we just had. But again, we only have 1 of those, so you can't have 2 of them using fire damage to elemental chain. You can still do regular chaining, but regular chaining is a lot weaker than elemental chaining, so This is kind of a wasted opportunity here. I was thinking, okay, well, you know, if 4-star Edgar can still be useful to some people, then a 5-star Luna chaining with herself could be really, you know, interesting for some people. But because of her limited weapon selection, you're not really going to be able to do that. Kind of a shame, but who knows? Maybe in the future they'll introduce like a wind bow that you can buy in the shop or something, and then, you know, she could become viable again. So I don't know. It's possible for the future. Rupture Shot. This is actually a decent ability as well. The hybrid damage 3x is not going to be a lot again because of her stats, but the decreased defensive spirit by 40% is actually a really strong debuff for her. So that's pretty impressive. These are just passives that she has. She actually has pretty nice passives, the attack and magic and stuff like that. But it's stacking on a base 104 attack, so it's gonna be limited on how high it can build. And then she has another debuff right here, decreased attack and magic by 40%. So okay, if you want to have a 5-star unit in your party and somehow keep that unit alive, then this could actually be a good debuff unit for you. If you're using Rupture Shot one turn and then you're using Impair Shot the other turn, you're getting basically a full, very much improved full break. Instead of 30% on everything, it's 40%, and that's actually a sizable difference. So there are uses for her. It's just that she's going to be hard to keep alive against tough enemies, but who knows? I mean, there could be people that you find that useful. There are plenty of full break users right now, though, and especially Rain. I mean, everybody has Rain, so this is a little less impressive now, but I don't want to poo-poo on her too much. She does have her uses for some people. Here she has a nice passive. And then Shadow Barrage, this is interesting. It's a regular barrage as far as the 4 attacks and the multiplier, but it's dark physical damage. But not really going to be able to chain this unless they change the animation, because Barrage is notorious for being hard to chain with because it's like irregular timing and everything. So it'd be nice if they made this chainable, but who knows? I don't think it is. And then her limit burst is just a vanilla dark physical damage here. So that's Cupid Luna. Okay. Thought I was on the same character for a second there. Cupid Artemios is a pretty decent damage dealer. Starts off at 4 stars to 6 stars, so he's kind of going to be compared to Chizuru, Mercedes, that kind of rank. So his attack is decent, not great, 135. Decent stats, again, kind of average. He is able to equip daggers, bows, and throwing weapons, and this is also going to be important, as we'll see later. Burst Shot, ignore that. You don't need it. Sunbloom Bolt, this is pretty decent, kind of like what Cupid Luna has. This is a light physical damage, 3x. So this is higher multiplier than what Luna has, and it's purely physical, so that's nice. Decreases dark resistance by 40%. Now, I don't know how many people would have a whole lot of dark attacks to make use of this, but, you know, again, it can come in handy in certain places. Sunbeam, that's just a very old standard skill. This is a nice passive right here. Now, if he equips a bow, he gets this monstrous 75% attack boost. So he would already have a 100% boost right here with these 2 passives. And he increases physical damage against beasts. So this could be a really good unit against beast characters. Now, the reason it's 75% and so hefty is because when you equip a bow, you can't dual wield with a bow. You can only equip that one thing. So they have to make this stronger. Rose Custodian, I don't know. I would not want him tanking for me. Now, here are the other 2 interesting passives. Undead Vanquisher increases attack by 30% when equipped with a throwing weapon and increases physical damage against undeads. The other one is down here, Demon Slayer, 30% again when equipped with a dagger, and increases physical damage against demons. So if you had a lot of TMRs, if you had dual wield, the ideal setup for him would be like a Rising Sun, Locke's TM, and then Ling's TM dagger. and you could actually get a lot of damage out of that. But otherwise, for a lot of people, I think they're just gonna have to settle for the bow here, which is, you know, still a good passive here, 75% killer bow. And I guess they thought about that in advance, because killer bow does have dark elemental, and this ability right here decreases dark resistance. So that's one possibility. He could lower the resistance and then, you know, attack with the killer bow and kind of buff himself up that way. Auto regen, that's kind of nice. Amp up, this is a really nice buff, 80% for 2 turns to 1 ally. And I'm normally not a fan of these really short durability duration things, but 80% is really hard to ignore, especially attack and magic. So if you did this on a Noctis, who can really make use of the hybrid damage, this is going to do a ton more damage for that player. So I really like this buff. This is a nice passive here, light resistance, and then all these resistances to these status ailments. Increase HP, that's very nice too. He's able to counter 50%, wow, with Blinding Bolt, which has a 50% chance to blind. The damage is almost negligible. And then here, it's basically the AoE version of the Sunbloom Bolt over here. Instead of a 3x multiplier and 40% to one enemy, this is 2.5 and 35% to all enemies. So depending on what you're facing, you could use this one or you could use the Sunbloom Bolt. Very good abilities, actually. So pretty good character. I would actually not mind pulling this one. Oh, I almost missed this one. Flash Barrage. Looks like a very good improved version of Barrage. Instead of 3.2, it's 4x. So this would be interesting because you're doing light physical damage, but then you're also, if you're using the killer bow, you're also doing dark damage. So yeah, this character is pretty interesting, I would say. And then the limit burst is just pretty typical, but light element here. So it's important to note that. So, you know, I'm actually pull on the banner just for him. He's not going to be like better than the units I'm currently using, but he's definitely going to be a lot of fun to use. So yeah, he's a really solid 4-star character. He's legit, so definitely worth going for some people. Alright guys, my voice is about to go, so let me try to get through this really quickly. As I mentioned, Marie is like a Sirius on steroids. Definitely going to be useful situationally for some fights, and it's going to depend on what the AI for that fight is. The HP is really good for a mage type of character. Pretty tanky character. 142 spirit is really solid. Typical. Oh, and we also talked about her rainbow robe. Best robe in the game by far. It's unfortunate she's base 5-star, otherwise I would really want to try to farm that. Alright, so she can increase resistance to the status ailments to all your allies. Obviously, in some cases, that's going to be useful. Sleep to all enemies, probably not. I mean, 30% is not that reliable. And yeah, even with a physical party, you could attack physically and then put them to sleep and hope that they'll miss their next turn, the enemies. But again, not reliable enough for me. Focus is nice to have. You don't necessarily have to keep bringing Cecil into the party if you want to use another tank along with your Refia. Prism Veil is a really nice passive here. 30% to all elements, resistance, I mean. So, you know, Marie's going to be pretty tanky, pretty hard to take down in a lot of fights, and it gives her resistance to sleep and silence. She's able to decrease all elemental resistance for 3 turns to all enemies, so this is a really nice debuff. And obviously, because it's not really going after any specific stat like a spirit or defense, this can stack and give you extra damage on top of like other kinds of debuffs. So this is a really good ability here. Dual cast is pretty nice because there are some green magic below that you might want to dual cast. She's able to counter with a lot of different chance kind of things. 30% chance to counter on physical attacks, 30% chance to counter on magical attacks, and you can decrease these kinds of resistances on your enemies. Pretty unreliable, but in some cases I think could really turn the tide of the fight. Or you can just rely on this 40% over here and not have to rely on the counter. But if this does happen to trigger, you're not going to complain because it's going to improve that debuff. Your Guardian is a nice buff to your resistances here. Although you're probably, again, going to manually do the resistances that you need. Love You All is a really good ability that increases all your elemental resistances by 50%. Again, if you trigger this passive, the counter here, it's going to be an improvement regardless, so it would overwrite the 50%, but this 50% is nice to rely upon as well. Now, magic-wise, she's able to do basically all the elements that Sirius is not able to do. Sirius has Bar, Faraga, Blizzaga, and Thundaga, but what she does not have are these, Waterga, Eroga, and Stonega. So the fact that Marie has these 3 elements really is obviously a huge improvement over Sirius. In most boss fights, I would say that you kind of know what elements you need to protect against. It's not going to be very common for the boss to be using like 5 different elements all the time, where you'd want to use Love You All or something like that. But I would say in most cases, the boss is going to be like concentrating on thunder attacks, or maybe thunder and fire, or 2 different elements. So in those cases, you'd want to dual cast the right bar spells here. And these are obviously a lot stronger than the bar, like Aurora is a 50%, whereas bar Eroga is 70%. So these are really good elemental resistance buffs. So these can really trivialize the fights coming up. I mean, a lot of bosses use elemental attacks, so if you know what they are, this really can help you out. Now, Reflect, I'll confess that I've literally never seen it in effect. I've never used Carbuncle to reflect a spell, so I don't know how it works really. I mean, I know how it works in other Final Fantasy games, so I would imagine it's similar, but this reflects 1 magic spell for 3 turns to only 1 ally. So I guess if somebody's about to die, somebody's about to eat a thunder spell or something like that, then you could really essentially protect that guy from dying. But I don't know. I don't think that's as big a deal as if it was like an AoE. So Carbuncle is still going to be useful in some cases. Limit Burst. Okay, well, here's your Carbuncle. Eat that, smooth JK. This reflects 1 magic spell for 2 turns to all allies. So this is, yeah, basically your built-in Carbuncle here. So again, I have yet to use this myself, but I can only imagine how useful that is when you can reflect elemental spells back on the boss, or magic spell in general. So that'd be really nice. So all in all, this is a very useful unit. Very easy to see how this would trivialize a lot of fights. High utility. Marie's not going to deal any damage for you. She might not even be healing for you unless you put on, a certain Esper or healing staff or something like that. But all in all, with her bar spells and her, all these other things, she's going to make a lot of fights a lot easier. And her Rainbow Robe is just an awesome Trustmaster reward. So I hope this was useful in some ways. I'm sorry that it was so long-winded. I tend to do that, but I'm going to pull on this banner just a little bit. I want to get Cupid Artemios, again, just for fun. But while Marie is very useful, I don't think that necessarily she's worth chasing really hard. I think a lot of fights will be just fine with somebody like Sirius because fire, ice, and thunder tend to be the most common elements. But when you need that protection against water, earth, and air, then Marie's going to be useful for you. I should also mention that you can get bar Aurora and those kinds of things by other means, and even water resistance, you can get that from I believe Luca, and there's other units that are out there. So it's not like if you don't have Marie you're just screwed, but having it all in one unit is useful. So again, I'm going on and on, but I hope this was useful for you guys, and I'll catch you next time.